Welcome everyone to the third ever Nonprofit Insights webinar. This is a new webinar series that VolunteerMatch launched in late 2012 to provide big picture trends and ideas for nonprofits and for organizations that work with volunteers. We are very lucky today to have the members of the DoSomething.org team to present their research study about engaging millennial volunteers and young volunteers. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few logistical things. First of all, it says that my name is Casey Brennan. That's not actually true. My name is Shari Ilson, and I'm the Online Communications Manager at VolunteerMatch. Unfortunately, I haven't yet been able to get my own login for GoToMeeting. So soon, though. You guys know how it is with nonprofits. Second, if you want to know more about the free trainings and resources that VolunteerMatch offers nonprofits, just go to learn.volunteermatch.org. And you can browse all our free webinars and downloadable resources, and it's a really fun website. Now, you already know that there's a chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and you can ask questions by typing in there, and then I will be asking the questions to the presenters throughout the presentation and at the end. And we'll try to get to all of the questions, but if we don't, we'll also try and have the speakers follow up with you. There's also a Twitter hashtag for the session, so you can follow along and join the discussion on Twitter that way, as well as submit your questions, and we'll get them to the speakers that way. That hashtag is VMLearn. And finally, this session will be recorded. It is being recorded, and we will be emailing all of you the link to the recording on YouTube and the slides. So you'll have all of that automatically. No worries there. So no need to take copious notes. And I believe that's all of our logistics, so we're going to get started. We're very lucky to have Aria Finger, Jeff Bladt, and Bob Filbin with us from DoSomething.org today. Especially since Jeff and Bob are data scientists, so I'm really excited to hear what they have to say. I wish I had a data scientist on my team. And they're going to present to you data from the recent study about young volunteers, and hopefully you'll come away with some really great ideas about how to engage young volunteers in your work to help you with your mission and whatever your nonprofit is trying to achieve. And I believe that's it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the control of the slides over to Bob, and we will get started.
Great. Thank you so much. So here is, hopefully everyone can now see my screen. And so my name is Bob Filbin. I'm one of the two data scientists on staff here. And
hi, this is Jeff Bladt, the other data scientist here at DoSomething.
Hey guys, it's Aria Finger, and I'm a lowly non-data scientist here at DoSomething.
And we are presenting live from the Bat Cave, which is the name of one of our conference rooms. All of our conference rooms are named after superhero layers, and we're here in New York City. And DoSomething.org is one of the largest organizations for young people and social change. So there are two core things, two core values that I think you'll be able to take away from this presentation. If you're already working with young people in volunteering, the insights here will offer new ways to market and to improve your marketing to young people. If you're not yet working with young people in volunteering, this will offer insight in how to engage them, not only on marketing, but also in designing your volunteer opportunities to include them. So why did we run a national survey on young people in volunteering? Well, there are a lot of surveys out there, but the big reason we ran this is Do Something knows that 93% of young people want to do something, but much less young people actually do. And so the goal of this was to understand how, why, and where young people volunteer. So the data was collected early in 2012, and it's a nationwide representative sample of 13 to 22-year-olds. We collected around 5,000 valid responses, and this made it one of the largest national surveys on young people and volunteering to date. So there are 3 reasons why this is better than other national surveys on young people and volunteering. First of all, it includes the voice of young teens. So this is the first comprehensive survey on teens and volunteering to include 13 to 15-year-olds. Second, we use a different, and I would argue better, definition of volunteering. It's more comprehensive. So a lot of surveys use, and including the federal government, use a definition of volunteering that only includes work done through organizations, which is great, except we want to know how young people think about volunteering, and that often includes work done outside of organizations. And if you look at Google Trends, since 2004, the use of the word organization has fallen by half since then. And words like group and club are used 16 times as often. So our definition of volunteering is work done for no pay for any group, organization, with friends, or by oneself. And when you use this definition, which we did, 54% of teens say they volunteer. And what this hits on is that many young people volunteer in unconventional ways. The third way that our organization and our survey was better is that we uncovered more accurate reasons for volunteering. So as you can see, Katniss, she is very focused in this on personal reasons for volunteering. Her sister is being recruited for the Hunger Games, and Katniss wants to take her place. So that's why people say they volunteer. But actually, people volunteer for other reasons too. And a big one is to be a part of a group. So here, Katniss is reaching out to the districts, and it's really about the social aspects of volunteering. That's something that has been underplayed before in research, but we found is really important. And to hit home how important this social aspect is, 76% of those who have friends that volunteer regularly, and only 42% of those whose friends do not volunteer regularly volunteer.
And so when we look at these findings, what I do, this is Jeff speaking, do some of these primarily optimize our large volunteer opportunities. Sort of to triangulate these data points, we have an action finder on our website, which allows our users to filter opportunities. And 2 of the questions that we ask almost anyone is, what issue do you want to take part on? But also, who do you want to do it with? And with these revealed preference, and they're just sort of thinking that no one's watching, again, we see they all want to do it with friends. And this varies by the issue, but with something like the environment, the overwhelming majority of people want to do it with either friends or a club, which gets back to how we design our campaigns when we're looking for new ideas to engage people.
And so one of the big insights to take away from this presentation is that young people volunteer in unconventional ways. So of the people we surveyed and that did volunteer in the last year, 40% of those did not volunteer with an organization at all. So these people are volunteering with an informal school group. They're volunteering just with their friends, with their family, or by themselves. And so there are a lot of opportunities to tap into people who are already excited to volunteer and are volunteering but may not be doing so with an organization. And the other big insight is that volunteering is like a party. And so a quick example on this, if you had the opportunity to offer a campaign on an environmental issue, and say you were thinking about perhaps installing energy-efficient light bulbs in a school, The idea would be to move away from that, which is a much more individual or small group activity, and move towards something like an environmental cleanup, which lends itself to much more emphasis on social networks, on volunteering with a group, hanging out with your friends in a park.
And so when we're designing campaigns, it's sort of like planning a party. What's the first thing you do when you show up to a party? You sort of peer your head in the room, and you see who else is there. Is there anyone I know? Is it crowded? Is it not crowded? Once you join the party, you don't want to be the first person to cut the cake. There's a lot of social norms you have to behave with. And when you design a volunteer opportunity, it's the exact same thing. We know that issue matters for teens, but what really matters is who are they doing it with. So they're peering their heads in the room. They're seeing, are my friends doing this? Are the cool kids doing this? Are people that I can relate to? Has someone else already initiated the activity? So these insights trickle down to the very basic level of how we structure a campaign.
And so to hit this point home, because this is real, everybody knows, I think, social volunteering is valuable. But to put this in perspective, if I'm going to use the names Jeff and Aria here, if Jeff and Aria are friends, Jeff cares if, and they are. And Jeff really cares about the environment, and let's say Aria really cares about teen pregnancy. If Jeff is offered the choice of volunteering on the environment alone or volunteering with Aria on teen pregnancy, our data show that Jeff would prefer to volunteer with Aria on teen pregnancy. So not only is social important, it actually trumps cause and many other factors in importance for getting young people to volunteer.
So looking at this insight, we're going to hop into a quick case study, which is a campaign we ran last summer with Bean and Lenovo called The Hunt. Aria, you can probably set up the campaign better than either of us can as far as mechanism.
Great. So we were looking into how can we do a campaign that runs during the summer. The summer is a time when, young people and teenagers are probably thinking about pool parties at the beach, not doing any work, hanging out with their friends. How do we create sort of a lighthearted, fun, party atmosphere for a volunteer opportunity? So we knew it had to be something that was inherently social, so created a campaign called The Hunt. It was an 11-day scavenger hunt, and each day focused on a different cause. One day, the first day was the environment, then animals, then poverty in your local community. And the insight that we used was, okay, let's make this about teens. Let's make this a competition between teams of young people. So what we asked them to do was to get involved by asking their friends to join a team with them, up to 11 players. And then every day during these 11 days of the hunt, we would send them a message at 11 a.m. saying, here is your mission for today, here is the point values, here is what you can do to make volunteerism something that, you don't have to be a martyr to volunteer. You can have fun with your friends while doing so. And we were really excited because we got an unbelievably enthusiastic response from the teams.
And I think something that's very interesting, we'll touch on which issues resonate with teens the most, and it varies quite a bit. But here we changed the issue every day, but the participation levels when we monitored it didn't change. Because we were doing it with friends, you could give them 11 completely different volunteer opportunities, and their enthusiasm for them didn't waver because they were doing it with people they cared about.
And if we could run poll number 1 at this point.
You got it. Let me set it up. So
Great.
you're going to see a poll on the screen, everyone. So please, please answer, and we'll show you the results shortly.
Great. So the next section.
Hold on. I'll close it in just a second. Give everyone a few more seconds to answer. And we'll do 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close it, and it should show the results. Bob, can you guys see that? The results of the poll?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So take it away.
So we have 55% working with young volunteers often, and another 30% sometimes. So it seems like the vast majority are either working with young people often or sometimes. So we will make sure we're catering our data to match up with those of you who are already volunteering, as well as those who are maybe doing it sometimes but thinking about engaging with young people more. So now we're going to cover a section on who volunteers. So some exciting insights from the survey on this. First of all, an unexpected result is that young people who go to the movies and who go to the mall actually volunteer more than those who don't. This finding exists even after controlling for the wealth of the young people and their families. So what this seems to be about is actually the social element. Those who go to the movies, who go to the mall, tend to spend time with friends, and that can contribute to volunteering. So whereas parents might say, hey, don't spend your time going to the mall, don't spend all your money at the movies, what we're showing is that it's not an either-or choice for parents and for youth. It's actually a yes and. So yes, I do go to the movies, I do go shopping, and I volunteer on top of that.
And when we look here at our next case study, Teens for Jeans, this is a campaign that really captures that insight. And again, I'll toss to Aria to explain the broader sort of volunteering mechanism here, but it was a campaign where we met kids where they were and meeting them where they do things with groups. So it takes place in the mall and at their school.
And I think this also takes us into, you have to make it as easy as possible for people. And I think we know that, but when you're trying to have any sort of behavior change of anyone, any age, teenagers or otherwise, you need to make it something that will fit into what they're already doing. And so this was about 6 years ago, we wanted to figure out what we can do around youth homelessness. We called several homeless shelters, specifically teen shelters, and they told us that one of the #1 things that young people asked for was a pair of blue jeans. These teens were going to school. You could wear a pair of blue jeans, 10 times in a row without washing them, and this was something that was very valuable to these young people. We then thought about the fact that teenagers across the country who aren't homeless potentially have, many, at least one, pairs of old blue jeans that they don't need anymore, but that are perfectly good for someone else to wear. And so 6 years ago, Teens for Jeans was born. And we thought, okay, we can have young people drop off these jeans at a local homeless shelter. But we wanted to make it as easy as possible, so we called the teen retailer Aeropostale that has 1,000 locations at pretty much every mall in America that teens are frequenting on the weekends, and we asked if they would be a drop-off location. Would they accept blue jeans for a month during the month of January and then ship them to a local homeless shelter? And I have to admit, this was like sort of a gamble. We crossed our fingers, and we're very lucky that now 5 years in, this past year, we estimate that over 250,000 young people participated in Teens for Jeans, and we collected 1 million pairs of jeans for these homeless kids. And so I think the real takeaway, kids are going to the mall anyway. This is a volunteer opportunity that sort of fits into their everyday life. They can do it with friends. They can create a competition with their school to get involved. And I think that's why we were able to, gradually get up to 1 million jeans per year.
So we're going to hop into a section on technology and volunteering for young people now. We know that technology is only growing, use of technology, especially mobile devices. And so we're going to talk a bit about that. To kick this section off, if we can run poll number 2 at this point.
You got it. Here we go. We'll give you guys about 30 seconds to answer this one, and then we'll close it. All right, about 5 more seconds. All right, we're going to close the poll, and here are the results.
Okay.
Does anyone see those?
Like we have 80% of you saying that digital technologies are very important to what you do in terms of how you communicate with your volunteers, which is great to hear that you're on top of this. It's a huge resource, and it's a way that a lot of young people are communicating. And so now we're going to cover some data on a type of digital technology that is really underutilized.
So the overwhelming majority of everyone here just answered that digital communications were very important to the organization. And it's obvious, you're reaching your users where they are, it's the next step, it's trackable, you can improve upon it. But what we found is that if you're just using email, you've already sort of missed one of the most recent technological ways. When you Google the phrase, email is for, Google with all its brilliance will autocomplete it for you. And the first one it autocompletes is email is for old people. The second one, email is for work. So if your digital strategy is email alone, you're already about a decade behind where they're communicating. When we text our 800,000 users each week, we have an open rate of 97%. 90% of these teams will open the message within an hour, 50% in just the first few minutes. When we send an email, our open rates are only 10 to 15%. And that's not just us. If you look across industry standards, especially with people targeting teens, SMS is routinely crushing it 4 or 5 times better in open rates. And then when we look at how we can activate teams from receiving a text or an email about a new volunteer opportunity to them actually taking the steps to complete it, the divide grows even bigger. SMS is 30 times more powerful. That's 3,000% more powerful in getting our users to actually take a meaningful action to change the community around them. So with this in mind, I know you've seen in our previous case studies, all of them have had sort of some mobile component as part of it. But seeing how powerful SMS was as a communication channel with our teams, we don't want to make it part of a campaign. We want to make it the campaign. And one of the issues we've always struggled with addressing and allowing teams to take meaningful action on is teen pregnancy. It's really hard for them to do something besides just educate themselves. And while we think self-education is important, we want things to be social. So how do you make this an interaction between more than just one person? So the idea we came up with was having one teen send a text baby to their friend. So think a Tamagotchi in their friend's phone. Their friend would get a message, Bob has sent you baby, text Y to accept, and when they opt in, for the course of a day, starting the next morning at 7 a.m., they would get a series of text messages that they could interact with that would mimic the process of being a teen parent. And while on the surface this may sound more silly than meaningful, the research we did beforehand looked at what the CDC had published about why teen pregnancy rates have been falling for the last decade and a half. And the number one finding they singled out was direct communication with youth and the channels that they're used to. And we coupled this with outside research which said when you make teen pregnancy sound scary in a broad sense, like you won't graduate from college, you'll earn $1 million less over your lifetime. Despite being true, it had no effect on behavior. What teens most respond to are things that would show them the impact on a daily basis. So by showing them what a day in the life was like, our intuition was this would enable them to better sort of weigh the decision. So we had 100,000 people sign up to send text babies to their friends, and we ran the campaign for 4 weeks, primarily sending it to their friends, and then the friends, once they completed, could send it to more friends. And then we followed up to see if this was actually a meaningful action. Did getting this experience from their friends mean anything? So we surveyed them afterwards. And 80% of the people that took part in this campaign said that it was more likely they were going to have a meaningful conversation with their parents or their friends about the issue. And we knew when we surveyed them before that it was an issue that was sort of taboo to just talk about on their own. And looking at what happens when teens have these conversations, they're twice as likely to make the right choice the next time, either to talk with the person that they're sexually active with, consider abstinence, or use protection.
And I think the interesting thing about the pregnancy text, in addition, one is that we targeted guys. Whenever you talk about teen pregnancy, everyone's like, oh yeah, let's talk to teen girls. And it's like, wait, I think actually boys and men are at least half of the problem. And so what we did with this campaign is we asked young people, again, because a lot of young women volunteer, target your brother, target your boyfriend, target other people in your life so we can get this conversation going with both, teen girls and teen guys. And I also think it's more broadly applicable because we approach a lot of organizations who want to educate young people. And you think about the people who are influential in young people's lives, and it's certainly parents and teachers. We know that our young people today do listen to their parents and listen to their teachers. But of course, another group of people that they listen to is their friends. And it is hard to start a conversation about teen pregnancy, about bullying, about racism even. And so one of the things we've done at Do Something is actually replicate this pregnancy text experience over a wide variety of issues. We created a bullying text experience where you were going through the first day of school. Just for MLK Day on Monday, we created something called the activist text, where you're learning what it's like to be an activist in the 1960s. And again, it's a fun and exciting way to educate young people about something, and then more importantly, they do your marketing for you. You're getting young people involved, and we all know that word of mouth is the best thing possible. At the end, we're asking young people, hey, if you thought this was fun, tell 3 to 5 of your friends about it. And then we can get those young people even more involved in the campaign, and it certainly matters more coming from a friend than it would coming from Do Something or someone else.
And speaking to the marketing potential of SMS, for every one person that we directly signed up for the campaign, 2 additional people were brought in by their friends. So we only found 30,000 people directly that were interested in taking part in our teen pregnancy initiative. They found the other 66,000, which is very powerful for us. Going viral, or at least having some sort of virality, which is initiating something that grows on its own, is much more successful on SMS for us than Facebook. When you think about this from a pathology point of view, viruses are most successful when the host has nothing else infecting it, which in this case, very few people are using SMS, whereas everyone uses Facebook, and when the host doesn't dial it down yet. So on Facebook, people's news feeds, Facebook constantly changes the algorithm, and so what they see is changing. One week they see 40% games, and Facebook goes, that's too many games, and they cut that down. So the host dials it back. On SMS, there's none of these natural barriers to your message naturally reaching people.
So if you are looking for an easy win for your organization and you're not currently texting, this is a huge avenue. So opening up SMS texting as a way of communicating with your volunteers. One, young people who text volunteer more than those who do not text. And as a way of reaching them and actually getting your volunteer opportunity in front of their eyes, this is more effective than any other digital medium. And actually, in surveys that Pew surveys found that actually young people communicate via text more with each other than face-to-face. So looking at meeting young people where they are, texting is the way to go.
The median teen, so the typical teen, will send 80 texts a day and receive a similar number in response. Only under 20% of teens use their phone to talk anymore, which is why you see data-only plans. It's texting, it's messaging now that's really the form of communication.
So, okay, so being here in New York,
Hey guys, can I jump in here for a second? Sorry, we've had a lot of questions come in. People are fascinated with this SMS idea and would really love some more information about it. Specifically, what does SMS stand for? What are some programs or companies or software that you use to run these SMS campaigns? How much might it cost? And other sort of more logistical and practical details that they can take away with them.
Sure. Great. So SMS stands for Short Message Service. It's not a commonly used acronym to spell it out fully as Short Message Service, but it's really equivalent to texting. So when we say texting and SMS, they're really the same thing. So sending any message by hitting your keypad on your phone and shooting it to your friend. There are other message services out there. Like Apple has a message service just for Apple users, but SMS is the classic one that's used across all types of carriers and all types of phones.
And we currently use Mobile Commons as our mobile provider. And so there are many, again, organizations out there. Mobile Commons is sort of one of the biggest and the best. They handle the back end for the Obama campaign and several other sort of high-profile text messaging campaigns, and they're the ones who work out all of the legal details with the carriers to make sure that the text messages that we're sending go out to all those carriers appropriately. And one other plug for texting that I will put in, I swear to God they don't pay us, is that the data is pretty remarkable. So whereas with email, it's sort of much harder to get the sort of data about who's clicking through and when and what and how and city and state and all that stuff, you can get that immediately from text messaging because you have their area code. And so granted, they could have moved, but you can get a lot of geographic data that you might not be able to get otherwise.
And as for cost, most providers, we've gone through several processes of evaluating multiple ones, almost all have a scalable model. So there's upfront costs, and then there's a per message cost. And the per message cost is usually under a cent per message. And most providers will give you a set number of messages to your constituency included per month, somewhere around 2 to 4 per member that you want to send a message to. And then after that, you pay per message, but again, under a cent per message.
And we've been running texting for over since 2008 at this point, and so our list is now quite large. We're texting with over 125,000 young people this week and each week, and so our costs are certainly higher than what they would be for you. But we found that dollar for dollar, this is by far the most cost-efficient medium we have for contacting young people about our volunteer opportunities.
It beats Facebook for us. It beats Twitter. It beats everything that you hear a lot of very smart people say are those right ways to reach our audience.
And are there other specific questions that we got from the group that we should be tackling?
Yeah, there's just 2 more that I wanted to put out about this whole SMS thing. The first one is people are a little confused about how you might build an SMS list. Is it opt-in, and how do you get those numbers to begin with? So let's tackle that one, and then there's one more after it.
So everyone on our list has opted in. And so there are 2 ways to opt in. One is that they send a message into our shortcode. So that means we have to put signs up or have someone talk over a PA system and say, text join to do something's phone number. And that's by far the minority of the people on our list. The primary way we got members is when we asked them to sign up for something on our website, email was required at first and mobile was optional. And we found that when we gave kids the option to give us their phone number, 70 to 80% would give it to us depending on the volunteer opportunity we were talking about. So people are volunteering this information to us. When they give us their friends or some of these experiences, their friend's first interaction with us is a message that says, do you want to opt in? And tells them that texting and messaging rates may apply. So all of that's up front to keep in line with the legal language. And plus, just we want to keep a high level of trust with our users.
And if you guys are interested, you can test it out right now. Our short code is 38383. So if you get out your cell phone, you can just text MLK, like Martin Luther King, just text MLK to 38383, and you will start the activist text experience. And so it'll walk you through, again, a day in the life of a 60s activist. MLK to 38383. And also just a quick plug, if anyone is like really interested in this, to the point where they might want to sort of make a shift in their organization or do this on a large scale, Do Something is starting a subsidiary agency to work with not-for-profits and some for-profits on socially responsible campaigns around young people, mobile, and social change. And so if you guys are interested, again, this is Aria. I'm happy to sort of get in touch and talk about if you want to create a larger scale partnership on that front, if you're looking for learnings and how-tos and best practices and that sort of thing.
And I think one last, very interesting way to think of someone's phone number. Phone numbers are our audience's social security numbers. They don't change. They don't have duplicates of them. They have one, and they only give it out when they trust you. And they're not gonna lose them because they're gonna turn it off. Whereas email, everyone here has an email that they sign up for promotional items, and they have an email they give people that they don't know if they want to, get to know better. They have a work email. People only have one cell phone number. So when you're texting with someone, you're reaching them in their pocket.
the great thing about that, too, is that we actually, for young people, we found that based on the area code of the phone numbers that we're texting with, there's a 94% match between the area code of someone's phone number and their actual location where they live. So for young people, if you're an organization working on a national scale, you can find out where your volunteers are at the area code level by having texting contact with them. And there was one more question.
Yeah, the other question is a little bit more abstract, but people are wondering if you have difficulty reaching a larger range of youth in different socioeconomic status, because really low-income youth might not have smartphones or might not have text plans that allow them to, take part in these SMS experiences.
That's a great question, and actually we've been really delving into this issue, and the really exciting thing is that texting actually over-indexes for low-income and minority youth. So if you look at texting rates for, let's take Latino youth, for example, Latino youth send 100 text messages per day on average, whereas white youth send about 50 text messages per day. And looking at where some of our populations are, we excel, especially on mobile, in a lot of very low income, very heavily Latino populations around the country. So it's actually, rather than it being a liability or diminishing access to low income volunteers, this actually is a great asset on that path.
We actually just this morning, we were delving into this data. It was so incredible. And we looked at our #1 city in the country in terms of young people who respond to our text messages and stay engaged. And it was actually McAllen, Texas, which I believe is the most low-income city in the whole entire U.S.
It has the lowest per capita income of any major metropolitan area in the U.S.
And those young people in that city, again, with the lowest per capita income, were most likely to stay on our mobile list and be engaged. So it's actually an incredible tool to reach low-income youth, which we've been really excited about.
And one of the big back-end insights as to why, when lower-income families have to choose between having a phone plan or a quality internet package or a quality computer, they tend to pick a phone because you have to have a phone. So people's phones are usually far more up-to-date, and the quality of the data, that their data plan is usually better than their internet provider.
So another thing to note is that one of the big reasons that we found for low income, and so from our national survey data, one of the big reasons low income or minority youth don't volunteer, if they don't volunteer, it's often because of access. They just don't have the resources being offered to them, or they're not being asked. And when they do have these opportunities, like we're able to do, like we're able to offer via texting, they actually come out and volunteer. They're as likely to volunteer as people from wealthier families. Great. Any other questions to tackle for now?
No, I'd say, especially in the interest of time, let's move on.
Great. Okay. So Empire State of Mind, Volunteer State of Mind. That's the mindset that we're in here at DoSomething.org. And so a little more data from the national survey on first of all, the issues that young people care about. So here are the top 5. One that we've actually found through some of our other research that isn't on this list but is a big issue for young people is bullying. And the reason why it's not on here for when we asked young people what their top issues are is that young people don't really see working on the issue of bullying as volunteering. It's more about being a good person or helping out your friends. And so recognizing that there are some limitations to what survey data can tell you.
And we really came to this bullying called epiphany, not through even asking questions, and we thought we were asking enlightened questions, but through monitoring our users' behavior. so we can see which parts of our website they reach more often. We have guides for a whole range of issues, and routinely bullying would be one of the top 1 or 2 in any given week that they'd be reading. We have an action finder which asks them what's the cause you care most about. And more than any other cause, they were adding in bullying, which intuitively we were considering as a volunteer opportunity.
So, okay, so top cause does vary by region. I'm going to just keep us moving along, though, in the interest of time. So we've also found that volunteering varies from private schools versus public schools, and in private schools you tend to have higher volunteering rates. Clearly there is a connection here to wealth. So young people from wealthier backgrounds tend to volunteer more than young people from low wealth backgrounds. So family wealth does matter, but what we found is low wealth young people who are in private schools volunteer just as much as high wealth young people in private schools. So this speaks to what I was mentioning a moment earlier, which is when young people have the opportunity, the resources, and are asked to volunteer, wealth is no longer a factor. It's more about access and opportunity to volunteer. So why teens volunteer? One exciting difference here is point of influence for friends and family. So speaking about parents, the time for parents to influence what their children do is middle school and then early high school, especially freshman and sophomore year. At that point, parents have more influence than that young person's friends on that young person's volunteering habits. Once you reach older high school, and especially in college, friends suddenly have 4 times the influence of parents on a young person's volunteering habits. When we look at guys versus girls, so the top 3 reasons that guys and girls give, and these correspond to the pictures rather than the heading here. The top 3 reasons, it's pretty clear that guys are more open about their self-interest. They're perhaps a little more pragmatic in why they volunteer. They want to get into college. They want to get a good job. And both talk about wanting to work on the causes they care about.
That's the guy's interpretation. The woman's interpretation of that slide is that women are better people than men, and men just want to get ahead while women care about making the world a better place. You can make your own decision. Okay.
Yeah. And so for the guys, to compel us to come out and volunteer, just have to frame things a little differently, that it's going to help us to get ahead in our alpha male competition. So, okay, so how young people volunteer. Number 1 way young people volunteer is fundraising. So, and that can take many different forms for a religious organization that they're a part of, for a sports team, other groups that they're a part of. And the number 1 group that they volunteer with is religious institutions. So this often takes the form of religious youth groups. Again, a great place for where young people are together in a social group, and there's also, in religious institutions, you have this moral aspect to the discussions. People are talking about creating good in the world, talking about making a difference, and so that lends easily to then going off and volunteering. Another insight is that young people tend to volunteer in ways that match their extracurricular activities. So if you participate on a sports team, you're most likely to volunteer by helping other young people by volunteering and engaging young people in after-school sports. If you are a musician, you're likely to help volunteer and teach other people music or art. And so this speaks to the type of volunteer work is similar to what a person's interests are. Volunteering activity by gender. So here we see that guys are into more physical types of activities like an environmental cleanup, like volunteering and engaging young people in sports. And for women, it's more focused on things like helping old people or homeless people, so helping individuals who are in need. And there are some benefits that you can speak to. So thinking of the selfish guys, if we will, there are some perks to being a volunteer. So one is that we found from our survey data is that people who volunteer are happier. So we asked some questions that are standard questions in psychology for finding out people's life satisfaction or overall happiness. And the young people that indicated they volunteer and volunteer more often also rated themselves as happier than those who do not volunteer. So that's a big perk. And young people are also more civically engaged. Here's a shot. Aria can speak to this.
So this is Jeff and Bob pulling a prank on me because I just got engaged. That's a picture of me for everyone in the crowd, but it is true. People who volunteer are more engaged in everything that they do, their school, their family, sort of everything along the way. So it's clearly something important for them as well.
Okay, and now to wrap up, we're going to hit on a checklist of some different key elements for how to engage young people in your volunteer.
And we certainly have about sort of 10 minutes left of the presentation. I do want to break here for a second. Sure, are there any questions that we should go into before we go into sort of the final element?
I think maybe if we can leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions instead, that might fit better. So.
Great. Okay. So we'll wrap this up in a few minutes and just make sure we leave time for questions. So one thing that we brought up several times is making volunteering social. And so again, this is the difference between if you're running a campaign around the environment, a volunteer activity, don't ask young people to install a clean energy light bulb in their home or in their school. Instead, offer something like a cleanup, an environmental cleanup in a park, where young people can hang out with their friends and layer the social good on top of that. It's hanging out plus social good.
After that, you have to make volunteering accessible, so meet your audience where they are. For us, we know they use phones, so we create a campaign like the Hunter Pregnancy Text that leverages the fact that we can communicate them while they're moving. Next, make it brief or singular. We ask kids how much time they want to spend on something. Almost everyone wants to do something that takes less than a day, and lack of time is the #1 reason young people give for not doing anything. So make things that are bite-sized. Allow people to sort of level up. We did a campaign where people collected aluminum cans. And we didn't say collect 1,000. We said collect 50. And then when they completed, we said, but you can't do 50 more. And it turns out most teams would come back for more and more and more. But a lot of people would just dip their toes in. And that's okay, because we can reach out to them again, and we're building a pattern of volunteering.
So this speaks to making volunteering familiar. So for athletes, offering opportunities to engage younger people in after-school sports activities. So this is about if you want to scale your volunteering, you can't take people too far outside of their comfort zone. So if they're used to athletics or they're used to arts and music, offer them volunteer opportunities that are similar to their interests. So focus on people. One of our most successful campaigns is Teens for Genes, like we talked about, and that's really focused on offering other young people, so these are our volunteers' peers, ways to help out those peers. So we're offering a way for these young people to help other young people in need. And then spotlight free. So this is a very young people, that's a very insecure age. And a lot of these young people are accustomed to anonymity. So often they want to be part of a group without leading a group. And so offering opportunities where people can participate in the group without necessarily having to run a drive or do anything that's scary and puts you in the spotlight is a great way to engage a lot of young people.
And this might be a little antithetical to how people treat millennials. Oh, they want to be famous, they want to be in the spotlight, they want to be a star. And while some of that is true, as Bob said, most of them want to fit in. So anything that makes them not fit in is a little more difficult for them, and so they like to be part of a group. And when we spoke to them and said, oh, what if we single out someone from your group to highlight, they said, absolutely not. We did this as a group.
So in terms of making sure that volunteering is beneficial for the volunteers, so speaking to some of those benefits, like being able to get into have a stronger college application, we sometimes offer scholarships for college attached to some of our campaigns. So we'll randomly select a winner, somebody who completes our volunteer opportunity. And this is a way to make sure that young people know that they can do good for the world and also benefit from that. And for teens who volunteer, social change is critical, but it can be a bonus. So if you think about that social element being the most important foundational layer, young people are going to volunteer if they can do so with their friends. But if you can hang out with your friends and make the world a better place at the same time, that's the ideal. Great. So now we can open it up to questions.
Wonderful. Okay. Let me just quickly switch over here. And we will start going through the questions in 1 minute. Sorry, guys. So, okay, the first question is, oh, this is an easy one. So people are interested in getting a hold of some of the case studies you mentioned, and maybe even the final report on this study. Where can they access that?
We have the report on our website. It's called the National Index on Youth and Volunteering, Young People and Volunteering. And so if you Google that, rather than giving you the full URL, which is kind of long, we can also email it and get it to you that way as an attachment. But yes, it's also available on National Index on Young People and Volunteering.
Great, and we will actually send a link to it in the follow-up emails that we'll send out to everyone along with the recording of this webinar and the slides. So you'll all have a link to that as well. The next question is a really interesting one. There were a couple that came through asking if you had any information about these issues and if there were differences among the different ethnic groups.
Yeah, there are. So one quick example, we ran a campaign called I Heart Dad, which focused on getting youth to get their fathers to get their blood pressure checked. So high blood pressure is a major issue for older men, and one of the biggest problems is that they never get their blood pressure checked, so they don't know it's a problem. So we found that this issue in particular did really well in minority communities, much better than it did in primarily white communities. So blood pressure, so things related to health, and especially health of family members, we found tend to do well in minority communities. Another one would be the hunt, which we talked about. Didn't do as well in minority communities. That tended to play better in our, primarily white communities.
Great, thank you. The next question, there were a few about this as well. A lot of organizations seem to have the experience that they'll get a decent sign-up rate for their programs, and a lot of young people will sign up, but either they won't show up, or maybe they won't necessarily be as attentive and productive as one would hope, given that maybe it's a social thing for them. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think that, I hate to sort of beat a dead horse here, but do something and seen, and also we've seen this nationally with Rock the Vote and several other organizations, that if you send them a text message the day before or the day of, again, that's a reminder they get, and for voting, it increases turnout by 4%, and we've seen big upticks in young people showing up for volunteer opportunities when it comes to texting. At the event, I mean, I got nothing on that one. I mean, at the very least, what I would do and what we just did at an event recently is we assign sort of teen superstars to be the people who are sort of running and managing the event, and that way they have something on the line to get their friends involved. If you pick sort of some of your sort of super users or superstars ahead of time, then they're the ones who can help, get the rest of the group involved, and when they see them engaged, they'll be incentivized to be engaged as well.
Another point on that is, as a young person, you don't want to be the first one to the party. You don't want to show up and just the host be there. So that speaks to the idea that allowing for flexible start and end times to your event and allowing people to show up fashionably late can do a lot for making sure that young people spend their time, they feel it's valuable, and then they can move on to the next thing.
We've also had a lot of success with specificity. So the more clear we are about what they'll be doing or what the action we want them to take is, the more people that complete it. So we didn't say recycle, because we've tried that before and got less of an uptake. We said recycle 50 cans. So we told them the item, we told them the number, then we guided them to locations they could take them. And the campaign's been far more successful than when it was vague. So the more specific you can be, the better it is.
And to that point, when young people, sometimes young people want to have a competition with their friends. So, hey, I collected 50 cans. My friends only collected 40. Cool, I collected more cans. So when you bring in that specificity of a number, it challenges these young people to meet that goal, and they can also see how well they did relative to their friends, which for some young people is very exciting. Thinking about school-wide competitions. If you have two schools in an athletic conference, one of those schools collects 1,000 jeans for Teens for Jeans, the other one collects 800. That's an exciting competition, and it might incite more involvement.
Great, thank you. So the next question is about social media. So you talked about SMS versus emails versus phones and that kind of thing, but what about social media? What strategies have been particularly useful for you and for nonprofits that you've worked with to engage young volunteers?
Well, I think the first thing you should think about is what types of social media you're going to. And Do Something doesn't do a particularly good job at this, but if you look at the millennial demographic, more teenagers use Tumblr every day than use Facebook. And so sometimes you need to think about what social media you're focusing on and treat it differently. So we say very different things on Twitter versus Facebook versus Tumblr. Although I have to be honest, we haven't seen them be the best sort of best gauges of activism. Like, we haven't seen a great conversion rate on that front. I don't know, Jeff, do you want to add anything?
So I guess some quick demographic notes. Tumblr is where most millennials are on any given minute, on any given day, followed by Facebook. And then at the bottom is Twitter. And then some of the things they're fastly uptaking are new apps like WhatsApp or Snap, things that allow for short burst communication but not SMS. So that's just sort of a hierarchy there. As far as getting people to take action, the only times we've had success is when we keep the experience within the platform they're on. So if we want them to if we want to get our Facebook followers to do something, if they can do all or part of that action while in Facebook, that's the only time we've been successful. When we ask people to leave their computer, go out into the real world, come back to the computer, maybe tell us about it, it doesn't work.
It's also worth noting that social media, as the name suggests, is about building a relationship. And so it is an investment. And you are building out a personality, especially if you have one person who's doing most of the posts or the tweets. You're building a personality and connecting with the individuals who follow you. And so for a lot of organizations, it's important to weigh how valuable you think it will be for you and whether it's worth your time, because it is a significant investment. It may not necessarily, unless you invest a lot, produce the results that you're looking for. So it's worth bringing up that question before you go full into social media.
Great, thank you so much. We're going to stop here because we've hit the bottom or the top of the hour, however you want to look at it. And I just want to quickly plug next month's Nonprofit Insights webinar about becoming a powered by pro bono nonprofit. Our friends at the Taproot Foundation will be with us to talk about how to create and manage a pro bono volunteer project with professionals. So instead of talking about youth volunteers next month, we're going to be talking about adult professionals and how they can help your organization. Thank you so much to Aria, Jeff, and Bob for sharing these insights with us. I hope that all of you came away with some more knowledge about young volunteers and some ideas of how you can better engage them with your organization. I'm so sorry to everyone whose questions we didn't get to, but maybe we'll be able to follow up with you later. Again, we'll be sending out an email within a week that has links to the recording and the slides for the webinar, as well as the link for the DoSomething.org study. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and we hope to see you again on another Nonprofit Insights webinar. Take care.